Hi, I'm Sydney, and I am a servant of the Almighty God. Today I'm continuing that series that I started on recognizing God's omnipotence. This series is really about us learning to see things with new eyes, looking at things that we accept that really do not make sense. Because the revelations that we've had over the last few hundred years, it when we look at all of it, it's it really should force us to revisit some of the assumptions we've accepted. So these assertions that were made many years ago, again, and I will reiterate, just like when we thought that the earth was the center of the universe, just like when we thought the earth was flat, those assertions that we accept tend to make us look at things a certain way. And one of the things is this work is based on inspiration that I got through fasting and meditation and praying. And, it had me start this journey. And one of the things that I recognize is that in the last 500 years, since 1859 and the theory of evolution, 10 years later, Dmitri Mendelev's receiving the periodic table of elements in a dream, and now looking at everything that we have discovered so far, which basically came into this. We must revisit this assumption that things are based on some random model. Because what we are seeing now, even with our AI, where we are starting to have things seem self-directed, that does not work. AI today is, if we can implement AI in all of these living organisms, we would realize, yes, it's very much leans towards an intelligent design rather than random. So one of the things I want to focus on today based on that is, if we look at, and I'll jump right into the life sciences, we can see that as organisms become more complex, and this is a key point, more complex organisms need a lot more training. Because us as human beings, look at our young. Our young absolutely could not survive on its own. And we are supposed to be one of the most developed. So if you follow that logic of, as you become more complex, you would think that absolutely we would have all these abilities to survive. Whereas you look at what we consider as simple. So it's that whole concept of the simple are endowed or gifted all the skills that they need to thrive and survive, right? Start looking at something like, a worm, a bee, a butterfly. Those things that we think of as being simple. And I will do another one of these on the butterfly. You can see the original shape shifters and all the gifts that they have been granted to them, so that they can survive just coming out. So when we look at little things like a frog, a snake, all of these simple things, they are supposed to be lower, less complex, and yet from the moment that that they pop into this world, from their birth, rather from an egg, or whether it's live birth or whatever, they immediately have all the skills that they need to survive. Yes, they are small and they are vulnerable, but they do not have to be taught. You look at bees and butterflies, lizards, they do not have to be taught any skills. So we're seeing something that really goes against that concept of as things, somehow in this random assertion that you would think that as things get more complex, they would be born with more skills, more inherited skills, because if it's passed down simply by genes, then yeah, automatically they have those skills. But what if we look at the natural world, we see that the simple things, they are born with all the skills, all the abilities to survive, and as we get more to the more complex, right up to us, ourselves, our offspring have zero capability to survive on their own. Zero. Okay, it's just a matter of hours or maybe a day or so before a newborn would die without input from those around it. Whereas, again, so this goes against that concept of random, and as things get more developed and it's an offspring of this, what I see and has been inspired to get out in these talks is that these things are there. We don't know exactly at what point this intelligence is passed down. It's somewhere, just like life itself. We don't know that switch that says something is alive and it's dead. We know the systems that support life, but that switch, when that thing is dead, right? And just like we don't understand that switch yet, we don't understand where in these rather simple organisms is that intelligence stored and passed down, right? There is nothing where we can say, okay, this gene, even when we look at something as simple as, some of these sponges in the oceans and some of the rather simple organisms, they all somewhere in their being, from the moment they are born, that intelligence that is required to survive and thrive, it's already there. So that's part of the thing that I recognize that it's anti the assumptions we would make when we look at things as they get more intelligent, more complex. You would expect, if it was just some random system, the more intelligent, more complex would have more of that skill sort of, baked in, so that the moment they are born, they would have that. What we see instead is that, and as it said, that the divine being, God created, and He, in His wisdom, gave these animals and plants and all of these things the skills, all the things that they need to thrive. And yes, we have, again, with free will, it's not like a controller. It's like, no, I gave you the ability to thrive. And so, yes, you can have external things that can decimate populations. You can have external conditions that are adverse. But even within that being, they have, again, with free will, it's like right at that point where there is life, there is something that says the genes that are within that organism have the ability to react. Just like we would program in AI, right? The vehicle going along recognizes, oh, okay, these are conditions that I need to, I check my database and that is not there, but it gradually learns by looking at these, and it's the same thing we see with these organisms. This is what we see as mutations. This is what Charles Darwin recognized. And the simpler organisms, they all have, so it's like they are parameters, and external boundaries where these genes can say, okay, based on this, that ability, that, again, like free will, somewhere, just like we don't know where life is held, there is that ability of these genes to combine and create mutations to adapt. And this is what Charles Darwin observed. So I want to bring this, and I will be bringing more specifics in coming episodes. I'll be addressing specific, creatures, different animals, different plants, where we can see the intelligence that when we, even a very cursory look, ensures that there is no way that plant or that animal can make the decisions that we see have been made. That looks, again, it's more like our AI, but we do it just with chip-based things, right? We have all this logic and databases that it interrogates and all of this stuff to make decisions. That we have not found, but that's the intelligence implanted by our Creator into each of these creatures. And so He has endowed the simplest with the greatest source and the greatest ability to survive with the least input from parental controls and parental support. So you see, a worm, a bee, a fly does not need any of these parental controls. But as we get larger, we see all the primates, and we look at an elephant. We look at ourselves. We need a lot of nurturing, and that nurturing is, my inspiration is that nurturing is not just for ourselves, because we are the keepers of His garden. We should be much better stewards, and so that training, that nurturing that we must perform on our young for the perpetuation of our own species. That basic nurturing is what we need as stewards in His garden to take care. This is why knowledge and science is showing us that the havoc we have wrought on our own ecosystems, but we also have the knowledge. That nurturing is what we need. This is the nurturing that goes against the greed and the corruption that basically takes away from our humanity. So this entire series of recognizing God's omnipotence should lead us back to God, becoming more God-fearing as we recognize His designs and the way we are supposed to react as stewards within His system, recognizing that He has bestowed upon the smallest, what we consider to be the simplest, the greatest ability to survive with little impact, whereas us who need nurturing should also respond with that nurturing to all of His creations. I want to thank you for taking the time, and keep looking out for more in this series. Again, I'm Sydney, a servant of the Almighty, and once again, thank you. Oh, before I leave, I would like to, once again, I'd like you to get a copy of my latest book, Humanity's Inflection Point, which takes a lot of this and expands on some of the greatest things that are in our path when we recognize the Creator and all that He has in store for us. Yes, the journey may not be smooth, but through His inspirations, you can pick up a copy of Humanity's Inflection Point and recognize the path that we can be on the sooner that we make the right choices to live as He would have us. Once again, thank you. Take care. God bless.